This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is part 3 of a brief webinar series to talk about how to administer tax increment financing in the Department of Management's property valuation system. And this session is particularly going to focus on how you set up TIF areas. So part 1 gave you background, talked about TIF itself. Part 2 talked about how you would actually set up tax districts, so TIF base and TIF increment taxing districts. And this session is going to talk about how to set up TIF areas, so sort of that overarching area within which tax increment financing tax districts exist and revenue is being divided. So when we set up TIF areas, you're going to have to do this in the system, and whenever you have any TIF taxing districts, there has to be an associated area. There has to be the overarching area within which these tax districts exist. So to get started, of course, you'd log into the property valuation system found on the county resource page, then by selecting the Submit Valuations Budget and AFR button. You log in using your normal Enterprise A&A account ID to access the system. And again, TIF areas, a TIF area is the geographic area that's authorized to generate TIF tax revenue. A TIF authority, a city, for example, may have one or more, several TIF areas within their borders. Some cities merge by ordinance individual areas into combined areas. Some have designated their whole city as an area. There's all sorts of different approaches on how these might look. And so what's very important is that you closely review all of the documentation that you've received from the TIF authority. Make sure you understand the urban renewal plan in the urban renewal area, and also the TIF ordinances that have been passed to divide revenue within that area. Make sure you understand the intent of the TIF authority with the documentation that they have sent you. So you're going to use the online system to create, name, and assign sequential numbers to TIF areas, and then to associate the increment districts within the area to that appropriate TIF area as defined by the ordinances that the TIF authority gave you. So as with our tax districts, we also have uniform naming conventions for our TIF areas. TIF areas, you don't use the backslash. Our naming conventions are for a city, for example, the city name, the area name, and then end with the words urban renewal. So in our example, we have the city of Pella has an urban renewal, and it's Pella. The name of the area is corridor, and then we end it with urban renewal. So a county would be very similar. County name, word county, and then the area name, and end with urban renewal. And if you had any jobs training TIFs, then you would want those to end with jobs training at the end. So that's just a reminder to try to keep your names consistent so they look similar as you move forward through the years, and that they're also similar to other counties as folks might look at the data across the state. So you might have an existing TIF area that you need to change, right? You might need to change its name. You might need to add new increment districts to it because there was an amendment. And so you need to go in the system. You had to create some new base and increment districts because the area was amended. And now you need to associate or stick those increment districts in with the area that they belong. So to modify an existing TIF area, you're going to go over and bring up your TIF area list within the system. And you'll see here that you'll have some options under Actions. This would be Edit. So you can edit the TIF area, and really what's available here under Edit is editing the name. So if you need to clean up some names in your TIF areas. You can manage associations. That's where you're going to associate or deassociate or unassign different increment districts to a particular area. And then, of course, you also have the option to delete an area if it's no longer in existence. Before you delete an area, just keep in mind that you need to unassign any existing increment districts that are currently listed there. So for editing a TIF area, so for this example, we're going to go in here and edit the TIF area. You simply bring up the edit button beside the area you want to edit, and it will let you get in here and make changes to only the name of the area. So if you need to, like I said, clean up some area names, this is where you do it. You do save, and then the area name would be changed. The other thing you might need to do with an existing area is manage the associations. So again, this is used primarily to add new increment districts due to a TIF area because of an amendment. So you had an area get amended, 5 years down the road, you're going to create those TIF increment districts, basin increment districts, and then you're going to go in and associate those increment districts with the existing area. So you see your existing area, and you're going to go to Manage TIF Area Associations. When we pull up this screen, what you're going to see is all the existing increment districts that are currently associated with this area. And keep in mind, what's going to populate what you're going to see is only the increment districts, not the base districts that are existing out there. You're going to see the increment districts that are associated with this existing TIF area. So say we had an amendment and we needed to associate a new increment district with it. You can go in the search button, start typing, and the system will pull up for you, some existing increment districts that are out there that don't have an association. So it's smart enough to be like, oh yeah, I remember you created this increment district. You haven't stuck it anywhere yet. It's going to go ahead and pull that up for you. But you'll want to take note of the name and the number for any increment districts that you need to associate with particular areas, just so you have that ready when you're ready to do the work in the system. So this brought up for us a test city increment district that we had created, and then you click the plus button to then assign it to the area. So deleting a TIF area, say you have an area that's no longer in existence, it's been eliminated, it's run its course, you would go in and you would delete the area. So it's pretty simple, just the trash can icon to remove. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to delete the area? Yes or no? Yes. But keep in mind that you had to have unassigned any TIF increment taxing districts with the area before you get to trying to remove the area. Otherwise, you see this error, right? So it says, well, you can't delete a TIF area that has TIF increment districts assigned to it. Like, what are you doing with those increment districts? If those districts should have been also deleted, then you go to the tax district side of things and you delete out those tax districts, right? If they're no longer needed, you delete out the tax districts and then go to the step to delete the associated TIF area. But if you were, simply needing to move those tax districts to another area, then again, you would have wanted to take that step, manage and deal with those tax districts before you get to the level of the TIF area. So if it has no increment districts assigned to it, you can simply go in and select delete, and it will give you the green option that it's been successfully deleted. Another thing you may need to do is to create a whole new TIF area. So you have a brand new urban renewal going on in your county, and new TIF ordinances have been filed with you, and you need to create a whole new TIF area. So again, you've created already your increment districts. Following those steps in part 2 of the training, you've created your basin increment districts. So you've got increment districts that are out there. They just need a home, essentially. They need to be assigned to the broader TIF area. So to create a TIF area, you would go to the Add TIF Area button. It's going to then provide for you the next available area ID number, so sequentially, but you can use whatever number is appropriate in this field, 5-digit number. And then it would do a area name box that's available for you. And keep in mind, we do have those uniform naming conventions. So you'd want to use the uniform naming conventions and add in your area name and do a save. So we've created a new TIF area. Basically, we've just named and numbered it, right? So it's setting out there, but you need to then take the step to associate the increment districts with the area. So those increment districts then have their broader home of the TIF area. So after you create the new TIF area, then you need to select it and go to Manage Associations to associate the TIF increment districts that you had already created to this new area, right? So you go to this little branchy thing, and you're going to go in, and because it's a brand new area, we see no existing taxing districts associated with it. No increment districts are listed down here. Go to your search box, and again, you can type in the tax district number or start typing in the name. The system's going to go out and it's going to find the increment districts that don't currently have a home, and it'll show them in the box for you, and you do a plus to then add them to the area. And it's going to tell you this increment was then assigned to this TIF area, and you can see it listed here. If you made a mistake at any point, you can always unassign. If you signed the wrong one at the time, just click that unassign button and it'll take it back off as being assigned. And then when you close and you would go to that increment, that area, you would see it has that new increment district assigned to it. Another thing that's sometimes happening is that TIF authorities are consolidating existing TIF areas. So they may be merging a couple different areas into one consolidated area. We have seen that happen more, and we do have a process to sort of streamline if you have a situation where someone's consolidating existing areas. So areas that already exist, they're now bringing together and creating essentially sort of a new area that is the sum of some existing areas. So you'd go to Consolidate TIF Areas, and it's going to have you walk through a series of steps. The first thing you got to do is select TIF Areas. So you'd select whichever TIF areas are being consolidated, and you say, well, is it being consolidated into a new TIF area, like brand new name, brand new everything, or is it being consolidated into an existing area? So is it going into, one of the existing names that are out there? So two are becoming one in a brand new area, or two are becoming one and using an existing name. So then it's also going to list for you the area ID and the area name. And we'd put in here that we have two areas that are being combined into a new TIF area. We have a new number, new ID number for that, and then the area name. And a lot of times these might be a consolidated name within the area. And that's always helpful to know that it is the result of two existing areas being consolidated, two or more, I should say. So then you need to select the TIF increment districts for the new consolidated area, and it's going to list out there if there were any currently unassigned TIF districts that were not part of the existing area, and you can assign them. And you do next. And it's going to say, do you want to delete the TIF areas listed below after consolidation? So those two original areas that we now stuck together and created a new area that we're calling the new consolidated area, do we want to delete out those existing TIF area names that were out there before, the two previous names? And in this case, we did a yes. So, and we finish. So you see now that the prior two areas are no longer listed, but we now have a new consolidated listing for an urban renewal area, and it combines or lists the combination of the two prior areas. So that's just an overview on managing TIF areas within the system. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.